Epicurean Smokes, where the good times burn.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Steven here from Epicurean Smokes. Today, I want to talk to you about my top 12 London cigar spots. I recently was in London and I compiled this list. It's in no particular order, but these are shops, some of which provide retail services and others that provide retail and lounge services. Again, they are in no particular order in any kind of ranking system. They are just in the order in which I was visiting them. So the first one to start with is Cigars at number 10 Manchester Street Hotel. This one was number one for me in my order of visiting these shops because it has the latest operating hours. So that provided a level of convenience for me as a traveler getting into town late and wanting to go somewhere on the eve of my arrival. And so they are open till 1 a.m. and that was a really nice convenience for me. They have a small indoor cigar lounge, sampling lounge with an open patio area, weather permitting. When I visited there, the weather was not that good. It was kind of cold out, and so the patio area was closed, but there was enough space on the interior for all the guests. They do get a little bit busy on nights when the other lounges are closed. So if you look at London's cigar lounges, you'll see that there's a lot of closures throughout the weekends, and some shops are even closed on Mondays as well. So having number 10 as kind of a nice home lounge that has long hours and doesn't have those types of weekend and Monday closures is really, really nice and convenient. Their selection's good. The staff is helpful. You can get different pours of alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, and they provide some nice tasty pairing treats like olives and mixed nuts with your cigar. So that was a nice place to visit. And the next one on my list is kind of part of a group of three. So when you visit London, if Harrods is on your list in Knightsbridge, then it's good to be aware of kind of the big three that are right next to Harrods or within Harrods, actually, for the J.J. Fox LCDH, La Casa del Habano store. So the group that we were traveling with, including my wife and one of her close friends, Harrods was big on the list of places to visit, and I was excited as well because on the lower level of Harrods is J.J. Fox, La Casa del Habano store. And so that was a nice one to visit. It is a little bit difficult to get to inside of Harrods, so don't be shy to ask for directions. We ended up on the way there, I think, asking for directions 2 times just to kind of get where we needed to be. It's actually a really nice shop, but the humidor is kind of small in comparison to some of the others, but the selection was decent enough. And so I was definitely glad to be able to visit their humidor. I did not have enough time to smoke in their lounge, unfortunately. But after leaving Harrods, we were able to go kind of, a very short stroll away, basically across one street to get to the Sautter cigar location in Knightsbridge as well. And they have a nice comfy lounge. The staff is great there. They're really helpful. Their humidor has some really neat vintage items, and so it was good to talk to Mike, who's their manager, about their different offerings, and he was super helpful with pairings as well as cigar selection. So I was able to get some regional cigars and different things that I wanted to try there. So Sautter Cigars on Knightsbridge was nice. From there, again, you're kind of like a short stroll away, and actually, if you look at it on a map, kind of right above Sautter is the Edward Sahakian Lounge and the Bulgari Hotel, but you have to kind of walk around the block to get to the entrance to the Bulgari. And everybody there was really nice. It's definitely an upscale place. I think their website says business casual or something like that. Like, you should have some little bit upscale attire to be there. But I didn't on the day, and I think nobody really gave me much of a hard time about it, and so that was fine. And it's another lounge that has a fantastic selection, both of vintage and non-vintage items. Mainly Cuban cigars is what you find throughout London, but you can find plenty of non-Cuban offerings pretty much everywhere you go. But I think for me as an American traveler, wanting to have access to Cuban cigars during travel was, pretty nice and a non-issue, because that's the main thing that is carried throughout the lounges. So we were able to kind of spend a good amount of time sampling at the lounge in the Bulgari, and I had a nice Juan Lopez number 2 that night, and the staff is great and very knowledgeable there. So definitely enjoyed that. The next day I was traveling near Mount Street, and so I was able to stop at the other Sautter location, which is a little bit of a different type of place. The humidor is about half the size in comparison to the humidor at the Knightsbridge location, and the kind of sampling area is a little bit smaller as well. It's actually significantly smaller. So, but I didn't have time to do any sampling there anyway. And it was kind of nice to see both of them because the selection is different from one to the other. So I was able to kind of buy some items from one side of their operation and some other items from the other side. That evening I went to the Ritz, and the Ritz has a really nice cigar lounge, and it's fancy. So the tobacconists there wear, like white, jacket, white glove kind of service. So it's very, very nice. Their selection is great. I think throughout London you find that the pricing is generally very high in comparison to what you see other places. Generally 2 to 3 times. In most places it was 3 times the cost of an item as far as like MSRPs that you see in other countries. So, that you can have whatever opinion you want about it, but ultimately you have great service and great selection generally everywhere that you go. And so it's still very, very nice to visit these places. I had a great time at the Ritz, and again, it's another one of these lounges that is really full service. They're providing you items for tasting as well during your cigar. So olives and almonds and chocolate was provided to pair with my punch, short to punch that I smoked at that lounge. So very, very nice time at the Ritz. The next night, I was able to venture over to number 6 Cavendish, which is also very, very nice. They do have, and several of the lounges have a minimum spend. So Cavendish, I think, has a 35-pound minimum spend. So something to be aware of, because some of the cigars in the humidor are not at that price. And so you may need to buy a little bit more to have access to the sampling lounge there. They do have an extensive liquor selection, and they were able to make a pairing recommendation for me during the enjoyment of my cigar that evening. So Cavendish is another one that's very nice, and although they are closed certain days of the week, they do have some nice later hours, so that if you need to go after dinner, there's plenty of time to do that. If you are kind of over in the area where Sautter at Mount Street is located, right across the street from Sautter there is the Connaught Cigar Merchants. If you go into the Connaught Hotel and enter through the bar area, there is a door that leads into the cigar merchants, which is a nice sampling lounge. It's got room for maybe 10, 15 people or so. It's a smaller space, but the service is very good there. and they have a nice selection as well. So that's a nice place to check out. If you are in the Covent Gardens area, there's a nice little shop there called the Cigars and Snuff, but it's not spelled Cigars, it's Segars. Cigars and Snuff Parlour is really cool. It's a small space. I think I didn't realize how small it was because when I stepped in and I was, chatting and buying a few things, a line formed behind me outside of the parlor. So it's basically enough room for maybe one or two people to stand in. But they had some nice selection, and the pricing was pretty good. So, in comparison to everything else in London. And so I was able to pick up some nice punch coronations, the petite coronations. They're a great cigar, and you don't always see them around. So I think only 2 of these 12 shops that I'm mentioning were carrying the petite coronations. So that was a nice find at the Cigars and Snuff Parlour in Covent Gardens. The big 3 are kind of the ones that are located on St. James Street. And St. James is a really interesting street to be on, because at the end of the street you have St. James Palace. So you've got this 1,000-plus-year-old, palace, and then a bunch of retail shops. You got Lock & Co., you got the hat company there, and you've got 3 cigar shops, and just at the end of the street there's this palace that's 1,000 years old. So coming from the United States, where in comparison we have a very, very young country, and then going to a city like London that's just drenched in history is so interesting to me. So at the beginning of where the cigar shops start in St. James Street is Davidoff of London. And so I was able to go in there and check out their humidor, which I think in terms of size, number 6 Cavendish and Davidoff of London kind of have the 2 biggest humidors in London as far as what I saw. And the selections are good in those. Davidoff has a vintage cabinet as well. I think with all of these things throughout London, you can kind of choose what you're willing to spend on a cigar there, because again, you're paying significant markup for purchasing in London, but the selections are really good, and having access to English market selection is nice. So Davidoff of London was great, and while I was in the humidor, my ears perked up, and I heard the voice of Edward and Eddie in the lounge area inside, and I smiled, and I was chatting with the tobacconist in there, and he thought it was funny that I could recognize their voices from inside the humidor, and I let him know that I watch quite a lot of YouTube content, so their voices were not new to me. But by the time I got out, they'd gone on about their days, so I ended up coming back to Davidoff later that day just to meet Edward Sahakian and have a picture with him. Eddie was busy, so I didn't get to see him, but it was very nice to chat with Edward in Davidoff of London and get a quick picture. So that was great. So I went down to Cigars as well, and Cigars has a very good selection, and their humidor is interesting in that they do partnerships with a lot of non-Cuban cigar producers. So you can find the Cigars collab with, I think they had one with Alec and Bradley. And that's just kind of interesting. You see these, very common AJ Fernandez, Alec Bradley, and all these different ones that, have a ton of different lines of cigars. But Cigars as a company has all of these collaboration cigars that aren't really available in other places. So that's a cool thing to check out. I don't think I was, all that interested in them at the time, just because I was, so much more interested in having access to all the Cuban offerings while I was there. So their humidor is very nice, and they do have a small sampling lounge. It's 4 small tables, maybe 8 chairs if I remember correctly. So I didn't end up staying to smoke that day. There were already several people in the lounge. So I didn't do any sampling. I just bought some things and went about my day and went over to JJ Fox, which JJ Fox is just to me a very, very, very cool lounge to be in. You know, it has the history with Winston Churchill. So when you go into JJ Fox on St. James Street, it's very, very different than the one that's in Harrods, the La Casa del Habano location. So when you go into the St. James JJ Fox, they have a stairwell. So the downstairs area is the Winston Churchill Museum. And so it's this room that's full of, you know, all kinds of different things. It's got Winston Churchill's ledger. It's got letters he's written, orders he's placed, you know, and they show the ledger of, you know, the 500,000 cigars that he ordered in his life, and the, you know, his bottle of his favorite champagne, and posters, you know, the Romeo and Julieta posters of his favorite cigars, and of course his chair, which you can sit in. And they were so kind to offer to take a photo of me in the chair while I was there. So it was a really great experience to be able to see that museum. But their humidor is very, very large. And so it's kind of on that same level with Cavendish and Davidoff of London. A very large, well-stocked humidor. And I think that the thing that sets them apart, in addition, is that they have house blend. So you can buy their house Nicaraguan Honduran blend cigar in just about any vitola. And the price was, I think, pretty reasonable for the service. I think I paid £22 for Robusto. And the service part is, of course, the cutting, lighting, and that they include water, still or sparkling, and a coffee of your selection, as well as, you know, seating in the lounge to enjoy. So that, to me, I think altogether made, you know, price sense. You know, generally a house blend, I think I purchased several house blends when I did my DC lounge tours in Washington, DC. And most of them were around the $7 to $8 range. So this is considerably more than that. But I think that you know, knowing what we know about, you know, pricing in London and the amenities that came with it, I think I was fine with that. I thought the cigar was good. I think their house blend for me was a kind of a middle tier ranking at Flavorful Fare. So it definitely, you know, was just fine for a cigar paired with some coffee. The other thing was that they had a lot of like rare selections. So if someone were looking for some hard to find items, kind of similar to with Davidoff of London, you know, having access to like vintage and rare items is pretty neat if that's what you're looking for. So I had a great time at JJ Fox, and I think that for me, you know, is one that I would visit again. I thought the experience at Davidoff of London was very, very cool, and I was glad to kind of be in the presence of Edward Sahakian, but they don't have the sampling component, and so having access to sample cigars is one of those things that, you know, for me was really special about the St. James JJ Fox location. You know, of course, I did get to visit the Edward Sahakian lounge at Bulgari, so I did get to do some sampling with Davidoff anyway. It's just at a different location essentially. So for me, those are my top 12. You know, from Manchester number 10 all the way through to JJ Fox on St. James Street. There is, of course, the honorable mention, the duty free in the Heathrow Airport. So on your way out, Heathrow Airport, I think it's Terminal 5, has a duty-free shop, and that duty-free is, it was decently stocked, but the prices are bad. I mean, that's just, you know, being straightforward. Like, if you see pricing that you're okay with, and you want to get something in London, that's fine. The duty free doesn't really have access to purchase singles, so you're kind of committed to box purchases. They had good stock of Romeo and Julieta. They had all the common stuff, but I didn't end up getting anything from duty free. There wasn't anything that they had that I wanted or didn't already have. So and they were kind of double the market price. So that's one of the things traveling to London is just understand that if you're buying singles or even boxes in London, you're probably paying 2 to 3 times MSRP, usually around 3 times MSRP. If you're buying at the duty free in the airport, you're probably paying double MSRP. So it doesn't feel great, so unless it's something rare or something you have to have, I generally don't try to buy stuff when I'm in London unless it's like the big thing I wanted to try while there was the Flor de Connaught regional edition. So that new UK regional that came out. So I'll be posting a review on that one to let you know what I think of it. But that's kind of my 2 cents, my takeaway of these big lounge options. There are certainly many, many more sampling lounges and tobacco shops throughout London, but these were the main ones that I had time to get to in a week's span being there. I hope this helps and kind of gives you a picture of what's available and what you might prioritize if you visit. If you have any questions for me, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer and kind of help you navigate your way through some of these really, really nice lounge and retail opportunities that are available in London. And otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much. Bye.
So till next time.